Hey, Divesh, it's great to spend time with you again. We're both just returned from the MEF Global Network event. We heard a lot about enterprises having to move data and workloads, and particularly around AI migration. What do you think the APIs that we've built and that MEF have standardized offer businesses in terms of controlling their network services?
Yeah, so it was a great meeting you and connecting with the fellow community at the GNE, just finished in Dallas. And it was an exciting chance for us to share the work that we've been doing in terms of standardizing APIs for carrier community. And how I see this is basically expansion of the ecosystem beyond just our own network, but to provide an end-to-end connectivity to our customers. I think the open API and standardized way of exposing APIs is the key, and I think that's what we're working on getting to it.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So how do you think the LSO standard has developed so far, Paul? And do you think that the MF LSO API adapter basically tries to bridge the gap there?
Yeah, I think one of the key takeaways for me with MEF over the last 12 months is their relationship with TM Forum. For those who've looked at network programming APIs, particularly in this fixed line space, there had always been some lack of clarity because MEF had adopted the TM Forum API standards, but was it for north-south, so programming between the OSS and BSS, or was it for east-west, programming between the different network providers? And I think now that MEF and TM Forum have got to clarity that MEF is east-west, and not just for network to network, but also enterprise to network, that's really made it clear in terms of what the value of the LSO API is in terms of programming networks.
Let's talk a little bit about the new LSO API adapter that we're providing in open source. So for starters, it's a low-code API mapping tool, and it's actually targeted for carrier community, fellow service providers like ourselves, and also regional ISP providers who are wishing to provide their services to tier one, tier two players in the market. And so for us, the LSO API adapter kind of works as a mapping tool, which maps a target API to the source. It allows for a low-code adaptation for providing a standard interface into the community. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, Divesh, you probably had one of the longest relationships with MEF that I'm aware of. You've been a contributor to the testing and certification community. If you were to compare the LSO adapter project that we've launched to some of the other initiatives and companies that you're aware of, what do you think the differences are?
Well, I think mainly most of the adapters or implementation of something like an adapter has not been open source. It is significantly difficult to get by those. Most probably, companies have to engage in a relationship with system integration vendors, and I think there is a considerable barrier to entry if you go around looking for any of that publicly available information. And also, there are aggregators in the market which actually charge on a per usage based. So these are, I would say, models that are available in the open realm in the market, but I think it's difficult because there is a high barrier to entry for adopting any of them.
So do you think the approach of taking an open source software model is going to be successful in lowering that barrier to entry? Was that one of the motivations for Console Connect to release the software under an open license?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. In fact, I think this is probably by far the first initiative by a telecom service provider to release a LSO adapter in open source. And I think definitely lowers the barrier to entry. And also it allows for a carrier community to engage and then maybe build collaboratively additional use cases. Because what I found is that, the initial adaptation that has been put in open source mainly covers the low-hanging fruits in terms of carrier Ethernet and XSE line products. But there are other products out there. There is internet access and a whole lot of SD-WAN products. And I think placing it in open source would help us leverage the community, that they can come and add more use cases to the ones that we already delivered.
It's a great observation of the power of an open community. Everybody benefits from everybody's contribution. I think that's really a key thing. The other thing I've learned as I've spent time with the development community that were focusing on building this adapter was that they were really focused on solving one problem. And that problem was that each of us network-as-a-service providers have had to build our applications and our platforms based on where we saw user demand. And often that user demand was occurred before the standards organizations had an opportunity to build a collaborative understanding about an implementation and then set a standard. So Console Connect, for example, I know we've been working on cloud connectivity APIs for almost a decade now. Obviously, they're only just starting to emerge in the MEF standard. And so as an operator, we had the demand to map from the MEF API back to the APIs that we'd already built. And I think that single focus of the LSO Adaptor project is what makes it so easy to use. It does one thing and it does it well.
Well, you bring this attention to a different topic altogether, how to monetize these APIs. And I think the use case that you just mentioned, Paul, that of on-ramp onto a public cloud using a private interconnect, I think there is a big potential there with the realm of Gen AI workloads, where telecom companies and even enterprises, they're looking to connect and train their API AI models, large language models, and data movement going in from public clouds to maybe to a private on-premise where there is inference taking place. There is a huge amount of opportunity out there. So in terms of that realm where we are moving data in and out of a public cloud to maybe on-premise because of data sovereignty issues, network APIs are key. And if we offer open APIs in that space and automate the level of connectivity between these two places, I think it would basically help monetize the network APIs in a better manner. Do you think?
Yeah, I think what you've just described is the Console Connect Cloud Router capability for the networking community watching this, but probably aware of the differences between layer 2 and layer 3. And Cloud Router is a layer 3 element, which is often used by our customers to connect one cloud to another, exactly solving for the use case you've just described. Given your background with MEF and the standards development, what do you think, take us through the processes of MEF developing a layer 3? I think you'd call it a payload in LSO terms. Is that right?
Yes, we do that, Paul. So MEF has formulated a whole lot of specs for each of the different level of connectivity. We have a carrier Ethernet, of course. There is a MEF defined payload for that. And for certain other, like what you mentioned, layer 3 connectivity for MPLS VPN, cloud on-ramps, MEF works on providing an LSO endorsed payload. What that means is any carrier partner who has developed any of these payloads and they are actively making them use in production, they could bring their work to MEF and they could get that MEF endorsed. And the benefit is that if we get a standard MEF endorsed, it can be widely adopted, and a whole lot of carriers can then use the same implementation to connect to cloud. So the one that was done in our recent past was the cloud on-ramp to Google. And Console Connect, as I understand, already has active integration into all the clouds, not just Google, but the one that we had pitched as a MEF endorsed payload was the Google Cloud Interconnect. I think there are more opportunities out there for other carriers to come and also collaborate under the MEF realm. Our project name under this LSO API adapter is called Clear Shadow. And so I think that is a place where other carrier community members who are listening to this would maybe help connect and engage with us there.
Great. Thanks, Divesh. So it sounds like if you're interested in knowing more, you go to mef.net and search for Clear Shadow. You'll get an overview of the LSO Adapter open source project that Console Connect has started and released under an open source license. Both you and I involved with a lot of the carrier community around MEF, and we know that not all of them would have the time or resources to be able to deploy something like this independently. So they may be looking for help. Do you know if there's anything that Console Connect would be offering any of the community that may be looking for more of a more support than an open source model would give them?
Yeah, I think the best way to start is first to get to the GitHub, where we have a Console Connect repository where we actually launched the adapter. They could download the open source version. And I know there would be carriers out there who might need some clarification questions. We have a support model there, Paul. And this is a very simple two-piece model that we would engage with carriers who are looking to get some more assistance in terms of deploying the adapter. And so we go with number one would be a discovery phase where we go and understand the level of automation that the carrier already has, and what APIs do they have already in their proprietary realm. And then we have the implementation phase where we would then actually go about mapping the proprietary APIs to a MEF LSO standard version, and then test and deploy that in production. So we do offer that assistance to any of the community members who are looking for that over and above the open source project.
For those who are listening, you want to have some confidence that the project is material and functional and production grade. So I'm happy to report that we're actually eating our own dog food, and Console Connect is using the LSO adapter to provide an LSO compliant API, which we're going through the certification process at the moment to map to the Console Connect API. So we're actively contributing to the project on an ongoing basis.
Yes, in fact, you bring in an interesting point there, Paul, that because how it came about, this MEF LSO adapter, we actually started working on it because Console Connect only exposed proprietary APIs to our carrier partners, and there was a whole lot of community members who asked us for an open standard API. And so the initial version of the adapter was actually developed to primarily address that issue, that we now have a open API based interface for whoever wants to buy services on Console Connect. So that was the initial motivation of this project. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. I think the other benefit that we both realized is that it's bilateral. So we have an increasing number of networks that we've integrated into our platform so that we can program their networks. And we're also optimistic that we're going to be able to increase the number of networks that we can integrate, not just on the sell side, but also on the buy side by making this open source project available. So it's a really great outcome.
Absolutely, yeah. That's an important point as well. To grow our carrier ecosystem in the marketplace, I think we'd use the LSO adapter to have carriers connect to our platform on a buy side as well.
I think we've kind of talked a lot about what we had hoped to achieve. Is there any closing comments that you'd like to make before we wrap up, Divesh?
Yeah, I think I would like to make a call out there for those who are listening to this to come join the community, download the LSO API adapter from the GitHub repository, and help us bring the standardized LSO APIs to other carriers in the community and expand the ecosystem.
Great. Thanks, Divesh. And for those who are looking for that GitHub address, it's github.com/mycloudnexus, NEXUS, mycloudnexus, all one word. Hope to see you there. Thank you very much.